we hear the sad news of the passing of legends. Today, the world says goodbye to remarkable souls who left their mark on history, hearts, and homes. In this video, we take a moment to remember them, to honor their legacy, their laughter, their
didn't
love,
just write
and
music.
their life. Join us as we pay tribute to those we lost, and celebrate the unforgettable lives they lived.
On a quiet morning, baseball lost one of its fiercest warriors. Dave Parker, the man they called the Cobra, passed away at the age of 73, a 7-time All-Star, MVP, 2-time World Series champion. Parker's name echoes in dugouts, locker rooms, and highlight reels as one of the most intimidating hitters of his time. Born June 9, 1951, in Grenada, Mississippi, and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio, Parker's baseball dreams were shaped in the city of the Big Red Machine. But his rise came with the Pittsburgh Pirates, where he debuted in 1973. It didn't take long for the league to notice. Parker wasn't just a hitter, he was a force at 6 feet 5 inches and 230 pounds. Dave Parker was a mountain with a bat. But he didn't just swing hard, he swung smart. In 1978, he earned National League MVP honors, batting .334 with 30 home runs, 117 RBIs, and an arm in right field that made base runners think twice and then turn back. Parker played baseball like it was war, aggressive, intense, uncheckable. He wore confidence like armor, and it wasn't just for show. He backed it up with thunder. In 1979, he helped lead the We Are Family Pirates to a World Series title, cementing his place among the game's elite. That same year, he won his 3rd Gold Glove, proving he wasn't just power, he was precision. But Parker's journey went without struggle. In the early 1980s, his career hit turbulence amid injuries and a widely publicized connection to baseball's drug culture. He admitted to cocaine use and became a central figure in the 1985 Pittsburgh drug trials that rocked the league. His honesty and willingness to testify helped clean up the game, but also cast a shadow on his legacy. The Cobra never denied his scars. He bore them, owned them, and then kept swinging. He resurrected his career in the mid-80s with the Cincinnati Reds, then with the Oakland A's, where he won a 2nd World Series ring in 1989. Over 19 seasons, he compiled 2,712 hits, 339 home runs, and over 1,400 RBIs. He was a warrior to the end. After retiring in 1991, Parker continued giving back, coaching, mentoring young players, and advocating for Parkinson's disease awareness after being diagnosed in 2012. His later years were marked by courage, grace, and the same grit that made him a legend. On date placeholder, assumed 2025. Dave Parker passed away after a long battle with Parkinson's. He was 73. His death marked the final chapter of a career defined not just by power, but by perseverance. Dave Parker was more than numbers on a stat sheet. He was the roar of a crowd, the crack of a bat, the fire in the eyes of a man who refused to back down. A giant in cleats, a cobra in motion. June 26, 2025. The world of classic television quietly lost a familiar face. Rick Hurst, the beloved character actor best known for his role as Deputy Cletus Hogg on The Dukes of Hazzard, passed away at the age of 79. Though his name may not always have topped marquees, his presence was unmistakable and unforgettable. Born on January 1, 1946, in Houston, Texas, Richard Douglas Hurst came into the world just as America was entering a new era. From an early age, Rick had a flair for performance. But unlike the showboats or spotlight chasers of his generation, Rick's charm came from a different place: humility. He wasn't chasing stardom. He was chasing sincerity. In the late 1960s, Rick began his journey in acting. He took on small roles in television series, honing his craft through supporting characters that always brought something special to the screen. He wasn't the hero, and he didn't need to be. He had something else, a quiet magnetism. Then came 1979, and with it, the television phenomenon The Dukes of Hazzard. Rick joined the cast as Deputy Cletus Hogg, the bumbling but lovable cousin of Boss Hogg. With a goofy grin, oversized badge, and a heart of gold, Cletus was an instant hit. In a show filled with car chases and country chaos, Rick brought comedic timing and small-town sweetness that made him stand out. His chemistry with the cast, especially Sorrel Book and James Best, created some of the show's most light-hearted moments. To fans, Rick wasn't just playing a part, he was Cletus. The loyal, kind, slightly dim deputy who meant well, even when he ended up face first in a haystack. His character wasn't about power or pride, he was about heart. And that heart resonated with millions. After The Dukes of Hazzard, Rick continued acting in various TV shows and films. He appeared in Matlock, The Love Boat, Murder, She Wrote, and countless others. He made a career not from fame but from familiarity. He was that face you were always happy to see. Reliable, warm, funny. Through the 1990s and early 2000s, Rick kept busy with fan conventions, voiceovers, and guest roles. He embraced his past, never shying away from his most famous role. While others ran from typecasting, Rick leaned into it. He knew what the fans loved and he loved them right back. As the years passed, Rick chose a quieter life. He spent his later years in California, surrounded by family, friends, and the memories of a career that touched generations. No scandals, no headlines. Just the enduring legacy of a man who made people smile. On June 26, 2025, Rick Hurst passed away peacefully at his home. The cause was age-related complications. There were no flashing lights, no grand send-off. Just a wave of love from fans who remembered the man who made Hazzard County feel like home. Rick Hurst didn't play the star, he played the friend, the neighbor, the deputy with a heart as big as his hat. And sometimes, that's the role that matters most. In the stillness of July 1, 2025, the voice that once roared through pulpits and across television sets around the world fell silent. Jimmy Swaggart, the firebrand televangelist and gospel musician, passed away at the age of 90, but his death marked more than the end of a life. It marked the final chapter of one of the most controversial and captivating spiritual journeys in American religious history. Jimmy Lee Swaggart was born on March 15, 1935. In the small Louisiana town of Faraday, a dusty corner of the South where revival tents and honky-tonk rhythms lived side by side. He was the cousin of rock and roll wildman Jerry Lee Lewis and country legend Mickey Gilley, and, though all three were destined for the stage, Jimmy took his fire to the pulpit. As a young man, he preached on street corners, in run-down churches, and under revival tents. He played the piano with the fury of his cousin Jerry Lee, but his words were soaked in scripture and southern brimstone. In the 1970s and 80s, Jimmy Swaggart became a religious juggernaut. His television ministry reached over 3 million households weekly. He was America's voice of salvation, condemning sin with fierce conviction and eyes that flamed with passion. Swaggart's prime time came in the 1980s, when his Son Life broadcasting network was at its peak. He built a religious empire from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with a congregation that stretched across continents. Viewers sent in millions. His sermons were emotional roller coasters, his gospel albums platinum-selling. His message, hell is real, sin is deadly, and Jesus saves. But the higher the pedestal, the harder the fall. In 1988, the world gasped. News broke that the very man who thundered against immorality was caught with a prostitute. The image of Swaggart, weeping publicly and begging forgiveness, "I have sinned against you, my Lord," became one of the most unforgettable moments in televangelism history. Though temporarily defrocked by the Assemblies of God, Jimmy Swaggart refused to vanish. He returned to the airwaves, more defiant than repentant. Another scandal followed in 1991. His empire diminished, but never disappeared. Through the 1990s, 2000s, and into the 2020s, Swaggart remained a haunting figure of contradiction. He kept preaching, kept playing, kept singing the gospel blues, And then, on July 1st, 2025, in his home in Baton Rouge surrounded by faded portraits of his glory days, gospel records, and quiet hymns, Jimmy Swaggart slipped away. He was 90, 'cause of death. Natural causes. He died not in disgrace, but in obscurity, still preaching to a loyal few. Still clinging to redemption. Some say he was a hypocrite, others, a prophet who stumbled. But no one can deny, Jimmy Swaggart lived loudly, fell hard, and kept singing. Long after the lights dimmed, his story was one of thunder and tears, of redemption and scandal. But above all, it was human. Fade out with a gentle gospel hymn he once sang. June 24th, 2025. One final note faded from the golden era of pop music. Bobby Sherman, the blue-eyed sensation who made teenage hearts race in the 1960s, passed away at the age of 81. He wasn't just a singer, he was a symbol of innocence, charm, and a time when music felt like falling in love for the first time. Bobby Sherman was born on July 22, 1943, in Santa Monica, California. Raised in the warm sunshine of Southern California, he was drawn early to music, performing with the guitar slung over his shoulder and a voice that seemed to belong on radio airwaves. But no one, least of all Bobby, could have predicted the stardom that was about to come. He got his break in 1964, not through music, but on television. Appearing on the popular show Shindig, Bobby quickly captured the attention of America with his boy-next-door charm and swoon-worthy smile. But it was in 1968, as he landed a recurring role on ABC's Here Come the Brides, that his fame exploded. Girls screamed his name. Magazines plastered his face on every cover. Fan clubs multiplied. And then came the music. Hits like Little Woman, Julie, Do You Love Me, and Easy Come, Easy Go launched Bobby into pop superstardom. His records sold in the millions, and he toured across the country to packed arenas filled with teenage fans. For a time, Bobby Sherman was everywhere: TV, radio, posters on bedroom walls. He was the American dream wrapped in a denim jacket, narrator, with admiration. But while the world was watching him, Bobby was watching something else, something deeper. Fame, to him, was never the destination. It was just a stop on a longer road. As the 1970s wore on, Bobby stepped away from the spotlight. While many expected a comeback, he surprised everyone by becoming a paramedic and later a reserve police officer in California. He taught first aid, saved lives, trained recruits. The idol had become a servant and he never looked back. He once said, helping people felt better than applause, and he lived by it. In his later years, Bobby made only rare public appearances, preferring privacy over flash. But the fans never forgot, neither did the industry. His contributions to music and television were honored with awards and lifetime recognition, but perhaps his greatest legacy was how gracefully he walked away. On June 24, 2025, Bobby Sherman passed away peacefully in his California home, surrounded by loved ones. The cause: complications related to aging. He didn't leave us with a final concert or a dramatic farewell, but with something far more lasting: kindness, humility, and a life lived for others. Bobby Sherman was more than a pop star. He was a hero in quiet moments, a heartthrob who chose service over spotlight, and a man who left the world softer than he found it. And now, his melody plays on in the hearts of those who remember. In an age of noise and spin, Bill Moyers was a rare thing, a voice of clarity. On the evening of his passing at the age of 91, the world didn't just lose a journalist. It lost a moral compass, a storyteller, and a man who never stopped asking the hard questions. Born June 5, 1934, in Hugo, Oklahoma, Billy Don Moyers came into the world during the depths of the Great Depression. Raised in Marshall, Texas, he grew up in a Baptist household with a deep reverence for faith, truth, and public service values that would shape the course of his life. His journey began not in front of cameras, but in politics. After earning a Master of Divinity from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, he became a key aide to then-Senator Lyndon B. Johnson. By 1965, at just 31 years old, he was appointed White House press secretary during one of the most turbulent times in American history: the Vietnam War, civil rights protests, and growing public distrust. He stood behind the presidential podium as the country shook. And even then, Moyers was not content to be a mouthpiece. He was a conscience in the room. But politics was not his final calling. After leaving the Johnson administration, Bill Moyers turned his gaze to journalism and found his true voice. For more than 4 decades, Moyers reported not just the facts but the truths behind them. His PBS programs, Bill Moyers Journal, Now with Bill Moyers and Company, tackled the soul of American democracy. Big money in politics, race, religion, the media itself. He asked questions that others wouldn't, sat calmly in the storm, gave platforms to poets, scholars, activists, and everyday citizens. His interviews weren't flashy, they were human, thoughtful, sometimes uncomfortable. He didn't chase ratings. He chased meaning, and in doing so, Bill Moyers redefined what journalism could be, what it should be. His awards were many: over 30 Emmys, a Peabody Lifetime Achievement Award, the National Humanities Medal. But for Moyers, it wasn't about trophies, it was about truth. In his later years, he remained a towering figure of integrity in a fractured media landscape. Even as networks shouted and spun, Moyers whispered wisdom. He believed democracy was fragile, that journalism was a sacred duty, that citizens deserved more than slogans and fear. On June 2025, Bill Moyers died quietly, surrounded by family, no fanfare, no spotlight, just the echo of a lifetime spent speaking calmly into chaos. Narrator final lines, solemn and grateful. He once said, "News is what people want to keep hidden. Everything else is publicity." Bill Moyers was never about publicity. He was about principle, and though he's gone, his example of courage, of conscience, of care remains. On June 17, 2025, the culinary world lost one of its brightest flames. Anne Burrell, the sharp-tongued, wild-haired chef who turned culinary chaos into primetime magic, was found dead in her Brooklyn home at the age of 55. She wasn't just a cook. She was a character, a force, and she left a mark far beyond the plate. Born on September 21, 1969, in Cazenovia, New York, Anne Burrell grew up in a world far from Food Network fame. She was quirky, energetic, and full of mischief qualities that never faded. From an early age, food was her language. Her family kitchen was her first classroom. But Anne didn't just want to cook, she wanted to lead. She studied at the Culinary Institute of America, one of the top chef training grounds in the world, and later took her talents to Italy, soaking in rustic traditions and intense flavors. When she returned to the U.S., she sharpened her skills in top New York City kitchens, working alongside culinary giants like Mario Batali. But Anne wasn't made to stay in the background. Her big break came when she began appearing on Food Network, first as a sous chef on Iron Chef America, then as a solo star. And then came the show that would define her, Worst Cooks in America, with her spiky platinum hair, booming voice, and over-the-top catchphrases. Anne was unforgettable. She didn't just teach hopeless cooks how to survive a kitchen, she turned it into theater, comedy, compassion, chaos, and underneath the sass was real skill and heart. For over a decade, Worst Cooks in America was a fan favorite, not just for the disasters in the kitchen but for Anne's unwavering commitment to every contestant. She cheered the underdogs, she called out laziness, and she taught America that cooking wasn't just about ingredients, it was about confidence. Outside of television, Anne released cookbooks, ran restaurants, and became a role model especially for women in the male-dominated food world. She never apologized for being loud, bold, or different. She owned but behind the scenes, the grind was real. Long hours, endless shoots, and, as some insiders would later reveal, mounting health struggles she kept mostly private. On June 17, 2025, and Burrell was found unresponsive in her Brooklyn apartment. Emergency services pronounced her dead at the scene. The cause of death was not immediately released to the public, but those close to her hinted at years of silent strain. The culinary world was stunned. One day she was laughing on our screens. The next, she was gone. Just like that. But Anne's legacy, in about how she died, it's about how fiercely she lived. She leaves behind fans, friends, and fellow chefs who admired her fire, her flair, and her refusal to fit into any mold. She turned the art of cooking into a revolution of personality. And she did it all without losing her edge. Anne Burrell made kitchens louder, livelier, and infinitely more fun. She taught us that even the worst cook deserves a shot and that being yourself is always the best recipe. He didn't just write music, he redefined it. From the sunny harmonies of surf rock to the deep, soul-bearing notes of vulnerability, Brian Wilson gave the world more than songs, he gave it feeling. This is the story of a genius both celebrated and tormented, a man whose melodies changed music forever, born on June 20, 1942. In Hawthorne, California, Brian Douglas Wilson was the first of three brothers. From the very beginning, Brian heard the world differently. He had what musicians call perfect pitch, and by the time most kids were learning multiplication tables, Brian was arranging vocal harmonies in his head, with his brothers Carl and Dennis, cousin Mike Love, and friend Al Jardine. Brian formed a little group in the early 1960s. They called themselves the Beach Boys, and within months, they became the soundtrack of California itself. Songs like Surfin' USA, Fun, 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 and California Girls captured the spirit of youth, sunshine, and freedom. But behind the breezy vibes was Brian, obsessive, meticulous, a studio wizard pushing sound to new heights. And then came 1966, the album that changed everything. Pet Sounds. Brian wrote, arranged, and produced the entire project with lush orchestration, complex harmonies, and raw emotion. It wasn't just an album, it was a revolution. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece. Even the Beatles called it a major influence on SGT, Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. But brilliance has a price. As his music grew more ambitious, so did the pressures on Brian's fragile mind. He began suffering from severe anxiety, depression, and auditory hallucinations. By the 1970s, he was retreating from the spotlight, battling drugs, mental illness, and isolation. The boy genius who gave the world harmony was drowning in dissonance. For years, Brian vanished from the stage, but not from our hearts. Under controversial care and years of therapy, he slowly began to return touring, releasing solo work, and eventually reclaiming Pet Sounds live in concert. He was no longer the teenage surfer, he was something greater. A survivor. In 2004, he released Smile, the long-lost follow-up to Pet Sounds, a project abandoned in the 60s that became a symbol of his struggle. It was met with critical acclaim, as if the world had been waiting decades just to hear the full symphony of Brian Wilson's mind. Brian Wilson's story is just about music, it's about resilience. It's about how even broken chords can resolve into something beautiful. He's been honored with Grammy Awards, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and awarded the Kennedy Center honors. But perhaps his greatest legacy is the emotional honesty in his music, the way he turned pain into poetry, fear into falsetto, and loneliness into harmony. Narrator. Final note. Reflective. He once asked, wouldn't it be nice if we were older? And now, decades later, Brian Wilson remains a living testament to the power of creativity, vulnerability, and the healing sound of a beautiful mind.